now, the organisation Equal Education, saying the Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, may be trying to remove deadlines that were set by her own department to remove pit latrines and provide things like water and electricity to schools. As I understand it, the changes have been set out in the government gazette, but have not been widely published. The campaign by organisations to remove pit latrines has been ongoing for many years. In 2018, President Cyril Ramaphosa himself promised a national campaign to remove pit latrines in schools. Chwayita Wenana is the Western Cape Deputy Head for Equal Education. Chwayita, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. What do you believe the Basic Education Department is trying to do here?
So, hello everyone listening. The Department of Basic Education has a law that is accountable to, called the Norms and Standards for Public School Infrastructure. This law protects public schools so that they are able to receive infrastructure requirements to be safe and to be in dignified schools. But the problem is that a few weeks ago we heard that the DBE is proposing new deadlines. In this, we found that they're actually proposing that there be no deadlines. So in the old norms, you would have 2016, we need to eradicate plain pit latrines, schools made of mud schools, and zinc and asbestos. And you would have, by 2020, we need to have safety in schools, so fencing, we need to have labs, and sort of school grounds. But now, when they are proposing that there be no deadlines, it will mean that school communities are not able to hold them accountable. It will mean that you also are not able to take them to court to say they have not done this by this set deadline. It will mean that school communities will have to wait for the DBE to feel fit enough to deliver the infrastructure deadlines. It mainly suspends the right to education because they will be at the mercy of the DBE. So that's the most scariest change that they're proposing, but it's not the only change. So they're also proposing that we went to court in 2018, as you rightly pointed out, to make sure that there are no any escape clause in the law. So we made the court to agree with us to say that education is immediately a realizable right. So you can't make excuses whether or not that department is not coming together or there's no funds. So you have to meet those deadlines because it is immediate that a learner must access education. So we also argue that the progress reports should be made public and accessible, and they should follow a criteria that will help us get information on progress. But in this new proposed deadline, provinces will report on whatever that they want, which will leave us not being able to access the right information. So those are sort of the new proposed changes.
Okay, Chwayita, thank you. I mean, I thought that there were certain court deadlines anyway. I mean, there's been cases, particularly if I remember in the Eastern Cape about this. I thought the department had basically some legally enforceable deadlines that have nothing to do with what it wants. It's what a court wants.
So you say that again?
Aren't there several court deadlines from cases in the Eastern Cape that force the government, that force the Department of Basic Education to actually make these changes anyway?
No. So what Equal Education fought for when it comes to these deadlines is that they are set and they are not escapable. So they are, but they keep missing the deadlines. So for instance, in 2016, they were supposed to eradicate plain pit latrines, schools made of mud schools, but they haven't done that. They exist, and what they are trying to do now is to have an escape plan. Meaning that if they don't put any deadlines and they say whenever it's possible, school communities will not be able to go and hold the DBB accountable. So they completely don't want that hanging over them.
So, I mean, this has been going on for such a long time, and I remember the President, after the death of yet another child in a pit latrine, the most awful death you can imagine, he promised there'll be a big national campaign 4 years ago to remove pit latrines. Do you think that the department just doesn't care? Is there really such a big resource problem they can't afford it?
Yes. So even with these new changes, when they didn't consult to say we are having these certain challenges. We are not able to finish these deadlines because of A, B, and C. They just magically over the past 2 weeks say that they're making changes. The DBE is basically not wanting to take responsibility for the majority of the learners who are going to the public schools. They are actually not making any progress, and they're wanting to not be held accountable. But the buck does stop with them. They're the ones who are needing to make sure that all schools are safe, all schools have proper sanitation, and are made of proper infrastructure. So it does seem like they don't really are not concerned about the needs of these public schools. If they were, they would come into a media briefing and say, for the past 6 years, this is what we've been able to do, this is what we have not been able to do, and these are the challenges. But they haven't communicated that with the school communities. And now they're making the deadline to be on the 10th of July, which doesn't give enough time for proper consultation to say how will these new proposed changes affect the school communities. So it does seem like it comes from a lack of disregard and not caring for the school communities that are impacted by not meeting these deadlines.
Chwayita, it seems to me that, we're just going to lose another child, aren't we? Another child is going to die in a pit latrine because the department hasn't done what it's supposed to do.
And there will be nothing that we can do about it, because at the moment we can be able to say, take them to court and say they haven't met this deadline. We can go and protest and do all this advocacy because we know that there are deadlines. But right now, if they are saying we will do it whenever it's possible and they don't put any deadline, we will see so many other learners walking long distances without any sort of tangible timeline, unless the DBE decides it's fit now to deliver this timelines. So it really does impact on the future of the learners that are in the public schools, and not just the mud schools or the asbestos. There's also safety challenges in the Western Cape, there's sanitation challenges in Limpopo, and there's overcrowding problems in Gauteng. So it will mean that we are expecting learners to read and compete, but they're not being given the basic infrastructural needs.
Chwayita Wenana, thank you. Western Cape Deputy Head for the organisation Equal Education. I do appreciate it.